Good evening. Today we are going to start ICOMOS Sri Lanka's public lecture. Today our speaker is Mrs. Anusha Kasthuri Arachchi. She's talking from USA. As a customary, I want to invite Dr. Nilan Ure, the Joint Secretary, to introduce Mrs. Anusha Kasthuri Arachchi, the today's lecturer. Dr. Nilan, so over to you, please.
Good evening, good morning in USA. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Anusha Kasthuri Arachchi, who is going to present on radiographic investigation. So I think it's we are thankful that Mrs. Kasthuri Arachchi has agreed to deliver a lecture at this time of the day from USA. Mrs. Anusha Kasthuri Arachchi served as an artifact conservationist and archaeological research officer at the Department of Archaeology and was the head conservator of the Afonster Maritime Archaeology Project from 2012 to 2005. She was the conservation specialist for Godawaya Maritime Archaeological Project, a collaboration with Institute of Nautical Archaeology, Texas University, USA, engaging in the scientific study and conservation of ancient shipwrecks material off the southern coast of Sri Lanka. She was the program officer of the US Ambassadors Fund project from 2012 to 2019 at the Department of Archaeology. He had been the Leon Levy Visiting Fellow in Archaeological Material Conservation at New York University from 2010 to 2011 and Lanka Conservation Research Fellow at the Metropolitan Museum of Art from 2012 to 2013, New York. Currently, she is a doctoral candidate in the Department of History and Cultural Studies at the Institute of Near Eastern Archaeology in the Free University of Berlin in Germany. The current research areas is Sri Lanka's historic bronze images. So, Anusha, the floor is yours.
Good evening and good morning in my friend in USA. So thank you very much all of you to arrange this kind of talk and give opportunity for me. So today I am going to explain about my research field of the X-radiography technique of the historic Buddhist culture. So let me share my presentation with you. Okay. My topic is today's radiographic investigation of Sri Lankan historic bronze image. The historical framework for this discussion is the chronology of Sri Lankan culture, which based on the archaeological evidence and radiocarbon date as defined by the three major periods by Dr. Radiographic in 1998 to as early historic period from 500 BC to 300 AD, and middle historic 300 AD to 1200 AD, and late historic period 1200 AD to 1815 AD. However, the earliest direct evidence for the production of copper alloy sculpture is uncertain. The origin and development of copper and bronze technology in Sri Lanka has been subject of considerable research, yet many questions remain unanswered. Much has been written on the historical, stylistic, and iconographic aspect of Sri Lankan bronzes, but only rarely have question, manufacture, or technology been addressed. In the absence of analysis, production technology has often been deduced from features observed in extant bronzes, which corresponded with those found in dated Indian example. This primary technical study was undertaken to understand as far as possible, given the size and variety of the sample, some differences in bronze technology used in different historical periods in Sri Lanka. Within the historical chronology reference above and overlapping its internal boundaries, a separate classification has been proposed for the evaluation of bronze sculpture, whereby the following four major development periods are recognized by Reedy in 2007 as late Anuradhapura from 5th to 10th century AD, Polonnaruwa period late 10th to early 13th century, divided kingdom period 13th to late 16th century, and Kandyan period from 17th to 19th century. In this study, mainly I use visual inspection and optical microscopy and X-radiography using the Kodak's HPX1 computed radiography system in the Metropolitan Museum of the New York. In addition, I used X-ray fluorescent spectrometry and metrography. I use facilities of the New York Metropolitan Museum X-radiography unit, digital X-radiography unit for this main study. So I identified mainly in Sri Lankan bronzes with lost wax technique widely used for bronze statue production. Close visual inspection together with radiography suggested that both solid and hollow casts were cast using the direct lost wax technique, with corresponding radiographs illustrate how the wax models were sculpted, punched, scored to represent different hairstyles. For example, the wax layer cladding the core and preform wax to the ears and hair adhere as a separate pieces. Second row punch into the wax layer. Scoring with pointed tool and spatula stroke on the hair head of the statue can be seen. In the bottom, the lion fur was articulated on the solid wax model with wax coil. You can see also the wax layer clad into the core and preform wax to the hairs as separate layer on the 8th century Buddha's head. This slide explains how the process of the solid cast lost wax technique. The first step in the process is to create wax model. The wax model is exact replica of what the finished bronze piece will look like. Then attach feeding channel to the wax statue. These channels serve as a passageway. They allow for the molten bronze to be poured into the mold and as an avenue for display air to escape out of the mold. Small cup-like reservoirs are formed above the allow for the metal to be poured into the mold without spilling it. Then a clay mold is made around the wax model. Diagram D, you can see when this is heated, the smelting or losing the wax. Diagram E, molten bronze or any other metal is then can be poured into the empty clay mold. Often cooling the clay is broken to reveal a solid bronze statue. Finally, cut remain foreign channel, finishing and polishing inlays as a final product of the statue. These are the lost wax, hollow and solid card final products. First one, hollow cast Maitri Avalokiteswara figure made in Anuradhapura period. And second, solid cast Durga figure made in Polonnaruwa period. Both figures belong to the Department of Archaeology. This is the radiograph of the both figures. We can see how to identify hollow cast figure and solid cast figure through the X-ray. First one, hollow cast Bodhisattva figure, and second one, solid cast Durga figure. Generally in Sri Lanka, while there is evidence for hollow cast and solid cast Buddha images dating from the Anuradhapura period, by the 8th and 9th century hollow cast Bodhisattva figure were becoming standard. While after the 9th and 10th century, most Mahayana figures of the Buddha, Lokapala and deities seem to have been made as solid cast sculpture. The latter practice is consistent with the restriction prescribed in the later Sariputra text, codified rules for the representation of the figure of worship. I discuss hollow cast Maitri figure first. Statue, we can see how the wax was sculptured to form every minute detail, including hair, facial features, jewelry, clothing, decorative pattern, etc. The casting is generally very high quality in this figure with less casting defects visible. The casting patch in the belly, chest, middle of the body of this Bodhisattva is visible. The ankle and feet have been repaired in ancient time, and we can see where the most on metal has run into the core in the rope. You can see in here metal run into the core in the rope. Radiograph of the Maitri Bodhisattva, which shows thin, even wall thickness. enable us to understand the thickness of the wax apply which was replaced metal during casting. The simple armature uh, straight armature of the statue is still in place, start in the head, extend down to the bottom of the robe, ensuring integrity of the core and wax around it. There are two different casting orientation. In many ancient and traditional casting industries, it is assumed or known that figural bronze statuary typically cast in a vertical position, usually upside down. The Holocaust Maitri Bodhisattva figure illustrates this technique with an main screw clearly visible under the peak, and cast on metal has run into the core in the rope. There is the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva belong to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. You can see structural damage in visual of the backside, but nothing on the front side. Standing Bodhisattva, this is the standing Bodhisattva with pedestal. But radiograph view different view of it. Radiograph shows complex armature in the torso which has smooth pieces of metal rod extend from the neck to the middle of the thing. You can see in here, in middle of the armature start near the neck and run through the bottom of the feet. An interesting features of this complex armature is continuous pieces of twisted wire running horizontally through the both arms ending at the each elbow. You can see in twisted wire can be seen through the both arms. In addition, round-shaped chaplet or copin can be seen on the front lower part of the robe as a buttons. This is the copin or chaplets. Radiograph also indicate Avalokitesvara is neither cast onto the base or nor joined to it by any mechanical means using metal components. It is a floating, not joined with pedestal. It is the analysis corroborate the radiographic evidence that the pedestal is not the original one cast with the body. The two parts appear to be joined together possibly during conservation. An interesting finding of this study was absence of armature. 10th century Holocaust stand-in Buddha in the Metropolitan Museum can be seen in here. It is actually 59.7 centimeter high. It's a very large figure, but no armature. In the lower part of the body of this image, there is a odd bent metal rod in here, metal rod that so far defies explanation but may have been used for maintaining the shape of the fold in the robe intact. There are 3 core cavities can be seen in core cavities in here. So there is or still can be see some core material. That is why we can see in the white color in core cavities in here. It is a black color. There are three core cavities in this image, and surviving core material is visible in the belly area. Also, you can see figure ABC, Maitri Bodhisattva, and some Buddha figure and Buddha head has some simple armature in here. So figure D has no any armature. 10.8 centimeter high 9th century Holocaust seated Buddha at the Metropolitan Museum has a simple armature, relatively well preserved in the center of the figure, as well as three core support or coffin iron chaplet located in the front of the belly, back of the lower body, and back of the chest, with rectangular patches, may be close screw in the right armpit. Second, 8th century seated Buddha figure, 8th century seated Buddha figure at the Metropolitan Museum also has complex armature consisting upright rod that extended from head through the torso as possibly continue to legs, with second pieces running across the chest on into the both arms. You can see in here arm continuously go through the arms. Casting floors on the front and back and at the bottom of the pedestal were visible in radiograph of the seated Buddha at the Metropolitan Museum. It was the solid cast figure. The floors has been repaired with iron fill, which seems unusual. The fills were identified as iron because they are magnetic and associated with the iron corrosion product. The radiograph saw the missing space within the statue, but visually we cannot see any missing space. Also, the radiograph of the solid cast figure shows three significant casting defects on the Buddha's robe. On the figure itself, patches of bright bluish corrosion indicate casting repair using the copper-based alloy. You can see patches of the blue color copper corrosion. This is the 65 centimeter high Candian style gilded standing Buddha statue was cast in 3 pieces. The hands may be cast separately. You can see in here. After casting, rest of the image or separately cast hand may have been cast on the precast body. So it is a solid cast, very white color, and you can see casting defect as like little black color patches. The Buddha figure was accidentally discovered. This is the Buddha figure in gilded Buddha figure belong to the Department of Archaeology. The Buddha figure was accidentally discovered in the village of Ankendavawa in the area of Galgamuwa of Kurunegala district, Sri Lanka during land development by a farmer. It was donated to the Department of Archaeology. You can see before and after appearance of the Buddha statue. This is the 10 centimeter tall. we did C14 dating. This figure exhibits the typical placement of the iron armature with the integrity of the core and metal around it. You can see typical iron armature, middle of the core. Since the statue immediate provenance was therefore definitely verified, a sample of core material was removed, determining its date. The result of C14 dating conducted on this sample indicated date between 385 to 535 AD, which assumed by John Twilly, who was conservation scientist in the Getty Museum, commented will typically be older than the statue's actual date. Because of we got this sample from the core material, it is consists of organic and inorganic both, not it is a pure charcoal. That is why he commented this more than less old. The presence of mercury within the gilding is indicated in the XRF spectrum by the solder on the gold peak. You can see in here mercury peak close to the gold peak. It is indicating mercury gilded traces of mercury in this statue. Originally, the eyes would have been inlaid with crystal, stone, or semi-precious gems, a common features of historic Sri Lankan statue. There appears to be rough surface inside of both cavities that would have provided good adhesion for the inserted eyes. This slide explains characteristic of lost wax technique on this figure. You can see in figure A, 5 chaplets at the right and left shoulder on the right of the stomach, on the drapery and the below the knee. Photo B, corroded cope in the left shoulder. Picture C, tool mark and hair model into the wax layer. Picture D, hair delineated in the wax. Picture E, wrinkles at the end of the channel mark on the wax. F and G, separately molded and attached ears. You can see separately molded with wax. You can see that one. You can see cast in place between the body and drapery in the through this X-radiography. X-ray showing position of casting patches like a pressing mark, round shape pressing mark. You can see in here and also on the X-radiography. Separate wax segment and sealed sprue can be seen. There is a sealed sprue, and also you can see wax segment. You can see in here wax segment. This is a Galgamo figure display horizontal casting orientation. That means you can see pouring cup in here in a melted metal coming through this way and went in here to escape some air. The square shape closed sprue appears inside of the face below the jaw. This sprue face forward and molten metal was possibly poured horizontally. The casting flaw at the nose are only revealed by radiographic investigation. The hypothesis is that therefore that the mold was cast at slightly angle of the horizontal position with face up, and the casting damage on the nose occurred at what would have been the highest point of the mold in the horizontal casting position. You can see direction of the metal flow from armpit with metal or melted wax into the core. The molten metal would have been formed from front to the back, accumulated toward center of the buttocks. The surface of the buttocks were repaired using cast patches for unknown purposes. So you can see in a melted wax or melted metal going through in here. So there is a casting patches under the armpit. The wall thickness of this statue is about 3 millimeter. So you can we can measure in wall thickness and in here and here. Due to later the damage, it was possible to see 7 millimeter thick and 12 millimeter wide rectangular cross section of 2 iron armature and core material, which had a very black carbon rich appearance. Radiograph also proved metal thickness of the head. This revealed typical placement of 2 planking flat armature segments. These are assumed to be wrought iron. A similar size third armature run horizontally and luckily to extend into both arms. The current suggestion is that the vertical armature starts in the head and may have continued down to the bottom of the torso without reaching the feet. Initial investigative cleaning was carried out to identify fabrication location of screw and chaplet and any inlays as well as establish surface condition. At the beginning, a covering layer of loose soil was to some extent removed mechanically with wooden tool and plastic spatulas. Initially, mechanical cleaning was carried out incrementally and under magnification using scalpel, taking special care not to damage the gilded surfaces. Before restoration of the neck area, I discussed with the Jerry Podney, who was the senior conservator at the Getty Museum. I got some instruction from him before restoration. We also decided to seal core and iron armature inside of the statue in the hope that this would contribute to protection of the armature and thus the casting as well. Before applying structural adhesive like araldite, we applied paraloid B72 glue around the edge of the neck as reversible step of the restoration and kept until dry. Then we inserted etherplum plug to the shape of the interior cavity in the neck area and provide a central hole to accommodate the armature to fill in the gap of the core cavity. Then we applied structural adhesive, Epopix hardener and resin 1-to-1 on several spots along the other edge where the joints seem to be fit well to assemble the head and body and allow the epoxy to set. Then fill the gap of the neck with the quickwood epoxy filler mixed with green yellowish color paint to match the surface color of the figure. After restoration, it was placed under the Museum display in last year with the Ambassador Fund project, US Ambassador Fund project. Similar size and style statue can be seen in the Colombo National Museum from Kubugate, also in the Kurunegala district. Bronze metal was split due to expansion iron armature at the middle of the statue. You can see big splitting in the similar object, similar size, similar style object because of expanding of the corrosion of the iron inside of the statue. That is why we closed our to protect the inside of the metal armature. That is why we closed the and sealed the neck area. A set of 5 9th century Brahmical direction deities, known as Lokapala, from the Metropolitan Museum, exhibited a gating system on the back of the statue, which provided rare and ideal illustration of the practice of casting statuary in the horizontal position with face down. In Galgamur figure face up, this one is a face down horizontal position casting. Traces of more than 5 gates were observed on the back of the each Lokapala examined, distinct from the typical casting system in Sri Lanka. Typical casting system in Sri Lanka is a vertical position, but this is the horizontal position. The casting of bronze in this orientation is known from traditional practice in southern India and has been demonstrated for Buddhist statuary made in Tibet as well. You can see in the pouring cup in here, in pouring channel like this. So in face down, every figure can be seen like this gating marks and close gating place in the back side of the statue. This is the unknown provenance, but this Sri Lankan origin Lokapala figure at the Metropolitan Museum. A set of Metropolitan Museum Lokapala solid card cast with less porosity reveal high craftsmanship with artisan. There is no any casting defects or no any porosity in the X-radiography. That means it is a good casting craftsmanship. The colossal Aukana Buddha image, conventionally dated the 5th century but believe some scholars to belong to the 7th century AD, is about 12.5 meters in height, was carved into the living rock, while the 5 protective Lokapalas currently in the Archaeological Museum in Anuradhapura were placed inside the semicircular lotus pedestal under the statue, were also cast in horizontal position. Conventionally, Lokapala were deposited in the stone receptacle with 9 or 25 compartments and placed inside the stupa under large stone image like Aukana and Maligavila under monastery porches. The presence of Brahmical guardian provided protection, and because they were placed under the feet of the images to be safeguarded at the same time, illustrated superiority of the Buddhism. Significant casting damage can be observed lower part of the bodies at the Aukana Lokapala figures. It would have been highest point of the mold in the horizontal casting position. They also face down horizontal casting. The earliest surviving bronzes in Sri Lanka are solid casts, representation of the Buddhist guardian figures from Digavapi Stupa. As these figures were not meant for public veneration and usually placed in inaccessible locations, they were less finely finished and even flat on the reverse in some relatively small figures. Apart from the Lokapala, these Yaksa figures from the Digavapi Stupa also exhibit horizontal casting position, and all are also solid cast. This is the Durga figure, which belonged to the Department of Archaeology, appearing to be good condition, but radiograph shows high level of porosity in its structure. You can see in here. You can see in here, it is a very high level of porosity in its structure. It was from Okevala Giribhava indicate that it is a solid cast. Also, I used the XRF technique to material analysis of the Buddhist sculpture, uh, Buddhist and Hindu sculpture. Traces of guilt observed under the magnification on the only solid card Bodhisattva figure at the Metropolitan Museum in the sample were confirmed as gold in association with mercury through the X-ray fluorescence. However, this figure was recorded by Schroeder in his publication as ungilt seated Bodhisattva on plate 79 D and E, Schroeder 1992. Seated Buddha from the Kandyan period have a silver inlay in the urna in the forehead of the Buddha figure. As my research and as my studies, after my studies, I arranged some XRF workshop with the Colombo laboratory as a collaboration workshop with the Atomic Energy Authority. So we arranged some lecture series, and also we did some practical session of the Colombo laboratory. So we did some several analysis with portable XRF machine. So it is as discussed throughout this talk, radiography is essential tool for characterizing the internal structure and technology of artifacts. However, likewise, it is fundamental importance decided their conservation treatment as well. So so I learned a lot of things and during this study, and also I had chance to do research. So I would like to thank all of the following people, especially for Dr. Roland Silva and Professor Nimal de Silva and Professor Matthias Knott in the HTW University in Berlin, Professor in Conservation Hanali Romiki in New York University, who was recommendation letter for the Conservation Fellowship at the Metropolitan Museum. And some other people. Also, I want to thank late Nilu Aberatna, who gave a lot of encouragement for my study. Thank you very much.
Anusha. Thank you. So I will invite Nanda Deva to handle the Q&A session from this moment.
Okay.
Are you there?
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayati, sir. Hi, Anusha. So nice to see you all, and thank you very much for your very enlightening talk. I think this may be probably a new field for Sri Lankan scholars, the use of scientific investigative techniques to study cultural materials, and a subject that I'm highly fascinated with. And thank you very much for inviting me to handle the discussion session, questions and answers. To begin with, Anusha, I would like to start with the session. I have this question now. I remember there were two other studies on Sri Lankan bronzes. One was by Chandra Reddy and Sherry Harlasher, which was published in Scientific Studies on Asian Art, published by the Freer and Sackler Galleries.
Yeah.
The other one is Dr. Arjuna Tamtilage, who is at the Postgraduate Institute of Archaeology, also studies Sri Lankan bronzes. I'm rather curious how to what extent your findings agree or disagree with these previous studies by Chandra Reddy, Sherry Harlash, and Arjuna Tamtilage.
Yes, I refer actually Chandra Reddy article with the Priya Sackler gallery. Also, I discussed with her online by email. Also, I refer Dr. Arjuna Tantilage's PhD thesis, especially in both them mostly did some composition analysis, especially.
Okay.
I base mostly based on the structural analysis, like using as a conservator, it is very helpful for me identify structural things and condition of the object. So I based only structural things more than elemental analysis.
Okay.
So also I introduced this technique, Sri Lankan custom, to identify object and artifact, because of they have a lot of problem to export of the artifact in the foreign country. So they want to mitigate that one. So I introduced that technique as a workshop and I discussed with them to make a database using some different period of the in Anuradhapura period and Polonnaru period and Kandian period, we can see a different view of the structural things. So we can make a database. So we discuss and suggested, still not happen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anusha. We have one comment from in the chat box. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now the floor is open to you for everybody. You can unmute your microphones and ask questions, or alternatively, you can put your questions into chat box. Either way, I have a comment from architect H.D. Voss. Anusha, thank you for your excellent talk. Looking forward to your PhD study. But there isn't a question. Ashley, if you have any questions, please, the floor is yours, Ashley.
Anusha, thank you very much. You have exceeded all my ambitions I have for you. I'm great, and that's excellent. And I'm looking forward to your PhD. One of the questions I want to ask is that now the Lokapala figures and all that you showed us from Digavapi, you said that they are not properly finished, right? Am I right?
Can you repeat question, sir?
Yeah. Now, say for example, I was looking at these Digavapi Lokapala figures.
Yes.
And they are not properly finished, you say?
Yes.
Finished in the sense that is it on the quality of casting or the quality of material used?
No, it is normally they are not used for veneration or some worship. So only they deposit inside of the stupa or inside of the pedestal of the huge image like Maligavila and Naukana. So always they not look like Buddha figure or Bodhisattva figure. It is a rough surface of the backside, especially backside. Normally some flat surface of the backside, not look like other Buddha or Bodhisattva figure. That is why it is a very high craftsmanship, but I don't know why they do not finish like or do not finish like Buddha or Bodhisattva figure. I don't know why. Because of I think it is not veneration or to use for worship. It is inaccessible place deposit, I think.
But the material is
Yes,
the same quality?
yes,
or
same
quality,
quality high-tin bronzes, always high-tin bronzes with lead, some lead.
That's right.
We have two comments from one from Susil Lamaheva. Thank you so much for the presentation. So Devinder Karunaratna says, thank you Anusha for the talk. Congratulations, keep up the good work. Is Mr. Sunil Lamaheva or Devinder, if you have any questions, please, floor is yours.
Anusha, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, yes.
Could you just give us an idea on the quality of work we see in Sri Lanka and the quality compared to rest of Southeast Asia? What's our craftsmanship in standard wise?
In Sri Lanka, actually there is a less still there is a less research on this field in structural and technological field. So in I did so far I did some 30-50 I examine and I did research on 30-50 artifacts. And also I conserved more than 1,000 artifacts in bronze especially. But I saw very good craftsmanship like Indian and Sri Lankan South Asian. Also I saw some Near East and Eastern Asian artifacts. So we have in Sri Lanka, we have our own style of the Buddha, Bodhisattva, and other in Lokapala figure, especially Lokapala figures. We have a lot of Yaksa figure and some Dikpala and Lokapala and some Gardenian figures, especially from the second century BC in Digavapi, also Oagiriya, Maligavila, Aukana. So high level of craftsmanship can be seen. So especially we need to expose these kind of objects for the research purposes. So in Oagiri have more than 50 sculptures like these Dikpala figures. So still not anyone did research on that figures. So we want to develop our research field in Sri Lanka, especially instrumental and some research-based facilities in our department and Central Culture Fund or PGIR.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have one more question. Do you think as the civilization or the kingdoms progress towards Kandy, the overall quality and the techniques were handed down? Is there evidence to show that our craftsmanship over time has improved, or has there been any stagnation with varying conflicts or issues during the transition of kingdoms?
Yes, in Anuradhapura period especially can be seen variety of craftsmanship in Lokapala figures and Buddha figure and Bodhisattva figure. In Kandy period especially we can see solid cast figures and huge sculpture. With using different techniques, some piece, small technique, and some kind of also they used more brass zinc, add zinc. But in Anuradhapura period, copper alloy with tin and lead, more tin and lead. So, and variety of tin, but small figure. Craftsmanship is a very own unique style can be seen in the Anuradhapura period. And Polonnaru period, there is some mixture of the Hinduisms and other kind of things. In deities figures can be seen. In Kandy and Kandy figures has some mix in some Thailand and some other kind of not in our own technique can be seen in the in Kandian period, later period. It is a huge figure but in Sri Lankan gilding system in always can be seen in mercury gilding. So using mercury, they use mercury gilding. Always we can see.
Thank you, Anusha. Anusha, your talk has stimulated so much interest. So many people are sending messages to the chat box. Let me start with I already gone through 2. Now we have Siva Ruby Sajidaran saying thank you for your excellent work. Siri Pereira says excellent. Sunil Piris, thank you for this lecture. Jinnah Kim, thank you for the talk. Anusha, do you have, there's a question. Anusha, thank you for the talk. Anusha, do you have a sense of where the copper alloy material come from based on your material? Did XRF reveal any special information regarding the raw material? For example, can we identify the copper ore? There are a few more, but Anusha, would you like to answer this lengthy question before I go to the other names?
Yes.
Anusha, did you get the question of Jinnah Kim? Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please, sir.
He asked, okay. Yeah, he says, do you have a sense of where the copper alloy material come from based on your XRF?
No.
Question 2 is, did XRF reveal any special information regarding the raw material, like where the copper came from, copper ore came
Not
from?
yet,
These
sir.
are the 2
Not yet, sir. XRF cannot prove all materials or raw materials. It is need to actually as you know, Dr. Arjuna Tantulage did some late isotope technique.
Okay,
So
right. So it's not the area of your
no,
research.
sir. It is difficult.
Okay.
I in my PhD research, I hope to do some raw materials.
Okay. Okay. Then we have luxury. I have only the KA. I do not have the full name. Luxury. Yeah. Thank you, Anusha, for excellent presentation. That's a comment. Divisha Atukorala, excellent. You can do more. Luxury Karuna Nanda. Thank you, Anusha, for excellent presentation. Siva Ruby Satidharan, thank you for your excellent presentation, which was given important technical way of cultural preservation. Siva Ruby from University of Jaffna. We have Mr. Jaitis, please put your microphone mute when you are not talking. Mr. Jaitis requesting everybody to mute their microphones unless you ask a question. John Guy wants to know the radiocarbon 14 dating circa 400 to 425 CE for the Galgamos standing Buddha is very important for dating of wider South Asian bronzes of first millennium. Can you extend this study to other samples in Sri Lanka? Anusha, would you like to answer John Guy's question? Yeah, this is to add to what John Guy says. This is indeed a new revelation that we have been able to date this to 400 to 425 CE. Congratulations, Anusha, for doing that. Okay, please go ahead to answer John Guy's question.
Yes, it is actually I did I got some core material and sent to the Beta Analytical Institute in the Florida to do C14 dating. They got this dating for us, Department of Archaeology, but John Twilly, who was the scientist of the Getty Museum, commented on this dating. He said and he suggested for me to did some other sample, some second sample or third sample with pure charcoal because of this core material, including some sand and little carbon material. So he suggested to do extract carbon material and do second sample. So I collected, before restoration, I collected some other samples. So I hope to do in future in second sample C14 dating extract with the pure charcoal from the core material.
Okay, thank you, Anusha. Dr. John Guy, did you get the answer? Do you have any more questions? Dr. John Guy, you may unmute your mic and you can ask Anusha directly. Is Dr. John Guy there?
Hello, yes. Thank you,
Yes,
Anusha. That's extremely helpful and very encouraging to know that more samples are under investigation.
Yes.
I think making of images in the first half of the first millennium is a very gray area for us. And the work you're doing is very, very important in putting milestones, mapping out that chronology. So very appreciative of what you're doing, and I look forward to building on this corpus, wider sampling, so that we have a larger body of data for verification. But the 5th century seems to be a very important moment in this technical phase of Buddha image making. And your work feeds directly into that very important presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Guy, for that the contribution. Next, we have on the chat box Kavan Rat. Kavan, you ask, can you age a sold cast bronze statue using impurities and trace elements? Kavan, would you like to unmute your mic and talk to Anusha?
Okay. Since technology, as it improves, the ability to purify bronzes would become better. Would it be possible to check on the how much impurity you find in the bronze to give some sort of estimate for the age of a statue?
Anusha, would you like to answer Kavan's question? Yes, Anusha.
Age of the statue?
My point is that as technology improves, the ability of people to purify the metal becomes better with time. So the older, I presume the older statues will have much more impurities than the newer statues as the technology improved to purify the metal that is used to make the statues. So is there a way of sort of checking that could be done based on impurities that you find in?
No. Actually, I used C14 dating. I used core material of the statue, not metal sample. So C14 dating, we used the core material inside.
I'm not talking about C14. I'm talking about aging using the impurity content of the metal, because older statues should have much more impurities than newer statues, because technology would have prevented older statues being made into pure,
Yes, in portable XRF, actually we use reading in the surface of the metal. So if there is more dirt or more impurities, it is some get error reading of the XRF. But other technology, we can metrology or some other XRD or scanning electronic microscopy can be get more accurate composition, elemental composition. But I know in XRF, especially XRF, it get a surface reading. So SCM, we can, XCM and some XRD, we can get more accurate elemental composition things.
Do you know of any research that has been done which will sort of publishes the with age, with estimated age of the statue, how the impurity content changes with time because of technology?
I think no, but in Dr. Arjuna Tantilage thesis has some information. Also, Chandra Reddy has some information. Chandra Reddy also did some 1 or 2 article about on the Sri Lankan bronzes. She discussed some sort of different period of the variation of the composition analysis with her article. So not much.
Okay,
not much.
Thank you, Anusha. Kavan, what Anusha has been telling from the beginning is that she didn't do any material analysis. Her focus was on the technique. Thank you anyway, Kavan, for your contribution. Now we have a couple more questions. Janice Leosko. Thank you, Anusha. Can you please comment further on observation of inlay for earlier images? Is it primarily the eyes? Janice, would you like to unmute your mic and ask the question yourself?
Yes, Anusha, again, thank you very much. It's lovely for all of us to be hearing more about all of these things. Following up really John Guy's comment, it's really important to be looking at the earlier images. And I certainly think, although it's wonderful to hear about Kandy period, the earlier material doesn't necessarily connect to that later material. And the thing that we are all trying to understand is this emergence and shift to using bronze, to using images that we find moving across South and Southeast Asia. My question really is about anything you didn't maybe fully discuss and observations you might have seen with regard to inlay, which we know is one of those processes that's differently presented over time. So again, thinking about the importance of the early.
Okay, Janice, you don't have any specific question, Janice? Only your comment?
Well, my question is there anything else Anusha can add to what she said about observations?
As I said before, actually in inlay, in mostly we can see in the inlay in the Kandian period with the silver and gold gilded and silver inlay, and in Anuradhapura period we can see gilded object. Actually, later period in 9th century, 9th century, mostly after the 9th century we can see gilded figure. But a special case in this Galgama figure in a gilded standing figure, also mercury gilded. We can see traces of the mercury with the this Galgama figure. It is a very important evidence because of this piece is much earlier than other figures. In still we thought in the earliest figure in the Badulla statue in the National Museum. So after the dating of the Galgama figure, we want to think again with other figures because of in Galgamo figures and other figures, they dated with comparison with the Indian figures, not actually dating or not actually analysis of the elemental analysis, scientific base analysis. Always we dating with the Indian example and iconography or something. So so we want to do more research and widely want to do what extend and how extend connect with the Anuradhapura period with the Kandyan period. It is a long way, so we want to do more research to identify connection between this technology development through the periods.
Thanks, Anusha. We have few more questions or comments. Next is Anuradha says, congratulations. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. Great work. Anuradha, do you have a specific question to ask? This is only a comment. Anuradha, would you like to unmute your mic and ask your question if you have any? No?
No.
So can we?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. Then we have next question from Priyanta. Priyanta says, thank you for the very informative lecture. If you have time, please tell us what this Metropolitan Museum and what you were talking about. I think Priyanta probably wants to know about the Metropolitan Collection, I guess. Priyanta, am I right? If that is your question, probably maybe Dr. John Guy would be able to enlighten us. Dr. John Guy, would you like to talk a little bit about the Sri Lankan bronze collection under your directorship?
I would be delighted to say a few words. Yes, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York, is the museum being referred to, where Anusha was a research fellow a couple of years back and worked on our collection. The collection itself has quite a history. Some of the works came from quite eminent collections, including the Islandberg collection. We're one of the few museums that are able to have a dedicated room. It's a very, I regret to say it's a very small room, but we have a footprint for Sri Lanka in the Metropolitan Museum, which we're very proud to be able to present to our global audiences who attend the museum. Some 7 million visitors a year in a normal year come through the doors of the Met encyclopedia collections. So it's its own way important and showcasing Sri Lankan culture to the international audiences that the Met has. We were thrilled to have Anusha with us as a research fellow in our conservation department. This sort of dialogue and partnership is very important moving forward, so we can build these bridges and knowledge and travel together along this path of learning more about the heritage and culture of the region. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Guy.
Thank you very much.
We have a couple more questions and comments. Aruni says, thank you for this interesting and valuable lecture. Aruni, do you have a specific question for Anusha? If you do, please unmute your. We have from Dr. John Guy, very exciting. We await further results. Thank you, Anusha. Dr. John Guy, do you have any specific thing to say again?
Well, I just, my next, I made one comment about the early inlay question from Dr. Liosko, rock crystal and gemstones being used not only for the eyes, but also for the Ushnisha. I'm not aware of any precious metal in the early periods, and would ask Anusha if she could elaborate on that and share what she knows about the use of precious metal inlays in the first millennium. I would love to learn more about this if indeed it exists. Thank you.
Anusha, would you like to add to that?
Yes, sir. Actually, in several literature, we see some precious stone and some glass material used for inlay of the eyes, but we couldn't see now in any object of the statue in like this precious stone. So only we can see cavity of the eye as evidence of the stone insert, but we couldn't see any gems or other precious materials. But in excavation of the Nilagiri stupa, we could find out some precious material, but not they are as beads or some kind of things, not inlay material of the statues.
Okay, thank you, Anusha. Anusha, you might not be able to leave soon because your talk has stimulated so many people. I'm getting so many questions and comments. I have one in the chat box from Neela, says Gamini and Mr. Ravi Karunaratne also raised hands. Can Mr. Gamini and Mr. Ravi Karunaratne unmute your mics and ask your questions, please? Ravi, yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I really don't have a question. I just want to thank Anusha for the excellent presentation and to wish her good luck. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you. We again have Dr. John Guy, early inlay rock crystal and gemstones primarily to eyes and Ushnisha, best I know, not aware of precious metal inlay in early periods. This is exactly what you you expressed a similar idea a few minutes ago. Is that right, Dr. John Guy? You want to continue?
I think we've sort of addressed that question. Anusha, which is to add anything about early inlay, precious metal inlays. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. John Guy. We have Devinder Kumara. Dear host, can you please let us know the topic and, I'm sorry, the next ICOMOS Sri Lanka lecture. Okay, we will make a note of that, Devinder. Again, we have a comment from Janice. Janice, yes, John, that was what I thought, making the use in Pala period, for instance, in India. Interesting. Janice, you want to expand on your comment?
Not really, but I think we're just showing Anusha how exciting it is to be able to think about technical questions and the way they feed into the development of much larger issues. So the more information, the more work you can do, we'll be thrilled.
Yeah, thank you, Janice. That is very encouraging. And everybody of us are looking forward to see how Anusha progresses on future research. And we would love to see her dissertation when it is finished. I don't know how many years Anusha is going to take for that. I do not see any more, but we have one name at the bottom, Laksiri Karunananda. Laksiri Karunananda, where are you? Would you like to talk? Unmute your mic and talk. Laksiri?
No, I just wanted to thank.
Okay. That's very kind of you, Laksiri. I do not see any more questions on the chat.
I think Ashley was.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Ashley, please go ahead, Ashley.
No, actually, I was quite intrigued with the eye story because I think the Egyptians used inlay in the eyes, and then we have it in Sri Lanka. I'm not sure whether they did it in India, so that's something interesting. And I think we have found some eyes in excavations, if I'm not mistaken, as well. You know, some sort of crystal. And then, of course, you have the much later 20th century Karagampitiya temple, which has sapphire eyes, you know. So that comes another. But the question that I was trying to raise was this. Say, for example, you're now working only with statues, right? Or are you looking at bronze casting over the period of time?
Yeah.
Because there must be things like lamps and all, which are cast much earlier, you know, in the BC period and so on. Maybe there were no statues at that time, but maybe lamps, you know, which were used in various things. And I think some of them have come out of the excavations, even at Tuanvillisai and so on. It may be worth looking at some of those lamps also, you know, to understand the casting techniques and so on, you know, because that same casting technique would have then developed into the statues, no? You know, as they got bigger and so on and so forth. So, and then that may also help you to tie up where the question asked about the copper, whether it was, Mahavansa talks about Sri Lanka copper and so on. Was it from there or was it imported from somewhere and so on, which might be also interesting. Anyway, thank you very much, Anusha. All the best.
I see no more questions. So we can wind up the question and answer session. I would like to get back to Architect Jayatis Herat to do the vote of thanks.
Okay, Professor Nandadeva. Thank you, Anusha, Ms. Anusha Kasthuri Arachchi, for accepting ICOMOS Sri Lanka invitation and delivering this interesting lecture. So it's fascinating and provoke several from the audience to ask questions. Very interesting, and we also wish you good luck in your research activity. Thank you for the participants also for your contributions and time spent with us, making this ICOMOS event very successful and live one. Thank you, everybody. I will let you know by email the next lecture and the topic, because still the date is not fixed and therefore it is difficult to tell me. Thank you. If you are interested or if you have not shared your emails, please contact icomos.srilanka@gmail.com email address to send your email contact address. Then we will be able to put you in the public lecture audience email box. So you will automatically get once the things are arranged. Okay, thank you, Professor Nandadeva, for conducting the Q&A session, and Professor Dr. Nilan Kure for the kind arrangement made. So we will wind up the session from now. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Depending on the time zone, I'm speaking from Sri Lanka. Good night. Okay. Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.